It is time for the Cyber Executive Podcast, where we'll be talking with the top executives about risk, technology, and leadership. I am your host, Mark Ashworth, and today I'm so very excited to have today's guest. She is a two-time Olympian, a National Basketball Coach of the Year, Amazon three times best-selling author, and a renowned motivational speaker, Sherry Winn. Sherry, thank you very much for being my guest here on the latest episode of the Cyber Executive Podcast.
Well, thanks, Mark. And I just want to make sure that everybody knows I am not a cyber executive. don't send me any questions about cyber. We're talking about leadership today and not cyber.
Yeah, we will talk cyber technology or anything like that, so we'll be good there. So I'll keep it at that leadership level, and I'll try not to talk too much about basketball because I can barely throw a ball. So we'll do, you know.
Perfect.
So in your best-selling book, Winning Leadership, which I have a copy of right here, uh, you discuss, some of your hardships and how you overcame extreme challenges for years of chronic pain, severe depression, and you turn that around to your success. So how can others change their journey and find success when maybe things are kind of dark at the moment or, kind of bleak?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And one of the things I work with a lot of my coaching clients is that there's many people that come to me with, they have what they think are insurmountable challenges, right? And we all have. Look, we're all going to have challenges. That's just the human experience. So understand that to begin with. But what I learned was it's really our thought habits. It's our belief systems that make it so difficult. So if you can change a belief system to something that helps you go forward rather than backwards or rather than be angry, then you can get there faster. So for example, what I'm talking about is using the formula E plus R equals O. So E stands for the event plus your response to the event equals the outcome. So if you understand that the event itself is neutral, now we put terrible labels on it. It's horrible. It's terrible. It's I can't. It's inconceivable. We put all these labels on something, which makes it worse for us. By the way, once we label it something, a trauma, a tragedy, whatever we label it, well then it makes it hard for us to respond. If we just understand the event itself has no emotion, we label the event. So our response to the event is really going to equal our outcome. And we get to choose our responses. I'm not suggesting to anybody that you don't have grief or you don't get angry at something. What I am suggesting, though, is that, look, when we can understand from the level of our awareness that we have the possibility of gaining something from whatever has happened, whatever that gain is, we have the possibility of that. And if we look for that, we're more likely to be able to get through whatever has happened to us easier. So that's one of the things I've talked about is just really having a shift in the way that we believe, which helps us overcome the challenges and adversity that we're going to face.
Wonderful. And in those times, there may be setbacks, and it could be anything from maybe in business a downturn in the economy, or a project going south, or maybe you're dieting and you're having setbacks, or whatever it might be. Or so how do you stay motivated when things get tough and to overcome those challenges? I know you talked a little bit about kind of neutralizing really the event and not putting labels on it, but how can you keep that motivation up to drive for success?
Well, this is something I call filling your cup, right? So a lot of people don't fill their cup daily. And what that means is they go out, they haven't given themselves anything. Now they go out in the world and everybody takes from your cup, right? So you got people, if you're a leader, you're going to have people that take from your cup every day. You've got those people that are going to come and they may just be a little bit dysfunctional, or they may be naysayers, they may be toxic. Ooh, they may be, people who you're trying to coach them when they're defensive, but there are people who are going to take, right? So if you don't fill your cup as a leader, you start off empty. Now you think you're going to be able to make it through the day. So the first thing I do in the mornings is I want to fill my cup. So how do I do that? I'm going to give to myself. I'm going to give to myself before I start my day. And the things that I do is, one is I write down intentions. So an intention is something that it's not a goal. A goal is I'm going to make X number of calls. I'm going to, make X amount of money, whatever that is. That's a goal. Like it's tangible. It's real. An intention is something that is more like whenever I meet somebody today, I'm going to be kind. I'm going to offer a kind word to somebody. I'm going to look for opportunities to be grateful. So those are intentions. So I write down intentions every day. Then I write down 5 things I'm grateful for. So my 5 gratitude statements. So things that I feel that I'm happy about, like, oh my gosh, look at this. Like today, finally, after 3 weeks, we're having warm weather in Montana. Whoop.
Mhm.
So that's exciting because I'm not wearing 3 layers of clothes anymore to go outside. But you find great, gratitude statements. I do 5 of those. Then I find something that I'm happy about my body. So for a lot of people go, what? Well, I was an elite athlete, right? And I trained like an elite athlete. I love my body. I love sweating. Then I developed an autoimmune disease. And so it's been very hard because I've gained weight. I can't do the things I used to do. Things hurt on my body. Ooh, they hurt. And so I have to find something I love about my body rather than being mad about it. So I write something down that it could be like, I love my blue eyes. And the next day, I love my blue eyes. Okay, you got to get off that. You got to find something else. Love my ears, love my toes. But you got to find something to be grateful for, right? And then the next thing I write down is a miracle. So either a miracle I've experienced myself or a miracle that I've heard somebody else share with me. And so people go, well, wait a second, a miracle. And I'm like, no, man, if you don't believe in miracles, you're never going to have them in your world. And so, for example, I had a friend of mine who fell off a bike, had a traumatic brain injury. They didn't know if he's going to recover. They're like, he might never gain his speech again. And he's perfectly normal today. That is a miracle, right? So I look for and write down miracles so that I understand they exist. And then I'm looking for them every day, right? I'm expecting them to happen. And then I do meditation, and then I read something positive, and then when I'm preparing my breakfast, I listen to something that's positive. So I fill my cup. So every day my cup is full. And then when somebody takes from it or something happens, I still have stuff. Like I still am full, like I still have enough to make it through the day so that when something else happens, I'm okay. But a lot of people start with the news, and the news is 90% negative. Now you're going to start with something 90% negative and you're going to fill your cup. No, you can't fill your cup that way. You have to fill it with good stuff so you're able to make it through the day.
Yeah. So, in other words, one of the things you could be listening to is the Cyber Executive podcast, which is going to fill your cup to talk about leadership. You got to get a plug in there. That was just too good for me right there, Sherry.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So,
You want to listen to positive things, you want to listen to things that grow, either grow you in your business or grow you in your leadership role or just grow you as a person. Absolutely.
yeah.
That's important.
So you mentioned earlier about, being an elite athlete and everything. And as a two-time Olympian, that requires a lot of training and drive and focus. So, you know, all of that is to prepare for that competition. So how do you prepare for that pressure of competition? And this could be the same thing in the business
Mhm.
world for maybe a big sales meeting or a project demo or whatever it might be. You have that big layer of pressure
Mhm.
that's gonna hit it, on day one, or on a certain day. So how can you prepare for that and succeed?
Well, you're the one who's putting the pressure on you, so take the pressure off, right? I mean, seriously, like pressure is not something that's like tangible, right? You can't see pressure. Oh my gosh. It's something that we start the thoughts that we have about an event are what creates the pressure. Oh my gosh, this is a big sales event. Oh my gosh, I have to really present this perfectly or something bad's gonna happen, right? And so if we put the pressure on, we can take the pressure off. That is coaching client and probably one of the best responses I've ever had over adversity. So, and I don't often coach athletes anymore, but she's an athlete. She's a golfer. And she calls me up. She goes, "I just played the worst golf tournament I've ever had in my life, not just in my life." And I go, "Oh, okay." And I didn't say anything. I just waited for her, and she goes, "But I know this: losing a golf tournament does not define me.
Mm.
I am worthy." Right. And so when you can respond like that and understand that an event doesn't define you, like Mahomes just played horrible, like the first half was horrible in the Super
Yeah.
Bowl. Does that game define Mahomes?
Nah.
No,
Nope.
no. You know, so if we can realize that we're the ones who are saying things that create the pressure, then we can choose to think differently so the pressure's not there.
Yeah. This past weekend, my son's a high school wrestler, and he was it was the match before the quarterfinals, and he was worried about the next guy that he was going against, and he almost blew the guy that he was there until he snapped out of it and focused on the moment.
Right.
and took that pressure off of him. And then he went and pinned the guy really quickly. And
Mm-hmm.
then once he got to the quarterfinals, he was able to be a little bit more relaxed. He was able to focus. He got out
Right.
of his head, and he took that pressure off then at that point, because he
Sure.
was worried about, he focused on the moment instead of the next round, or the what the event is and that sort of thing. So
Yeah. Well, you can't let the past or the future define you. You have to be, like you said, Mark, those people who are really in the zone, like people who play in the zone, they're in the current moment. They're not living in the past, which is full of regrets, and not thinking about the future is full of anxiety. They're really just right here, right now, in the moment.
yeah. And in leadership, and whether it's a high performing team, or in your case, as uh, a national coach of the year, national championship 5 times back to back. I'm bragging on you here. I'm just so excited about this. And so that level of leadership, and taking a diverse team with different skills that in your case probably changed every year because of
Right.
people graduating, freshmen coming in, and that sort of things. How do you get them to work cohesively and effectively? And in the business world, it might be that you're bringing in different members of a project team that
Right.
has different skills and and expertise, but getting them to work together to get that end result of whether it's a championship or just winning a game or finishing a project or task.
Well, that's the magic, isn't it, Mark? That's the
Yeah.
magic. Like a leader who understands that's the magic. Because even if you say we have the same team, you don't from year to year, because people change, right? So an event happens in
Mhm.
their life, it changes the person. So you can't even say that we have the same team from year to year, because those people, due to the events that are going on in their life, might change. So your job as a leader is really, how do we get the team to play as a unit? And that's letting them define. Like you have to bring, like everybody starts the project and then it's like, oh yeah, we got to figure this out. No, you start with the people first. What do you you can do a lot of different things. You could have people come together and like, what is our goal as a team? How are we going to define our success? What do people need to know about you to help them able to work with you? What is it? You could do a personality test so everybody knows how to work better with people. So it's really, I mean, what we forget to do is we should start with the people and not the project, right? You have to get the people to work together. So, and this is not a one-time thing. This could be a weekly thing. This could be a monthly thing, but it's guaranteed that if we don't do things to hold the team together, it will fall apart. So it's that constant effort on your part to have the conversations, to check in with the team. Hey team, on a scale from 1 to 10, on us working as a unit, how are we doing? 10 being the highest number and 1 being the lowest number, and then just do a check in. And so somebody says we're 7, and you go, oh, so what would make us a 10 right now? What are we not doing that needs to move so that we can be a 10? It's
Mm.
simple things like that. And I think what people forget, and I mean, not just coaching, I mean, it's like not just coaching team, but in leadership, people forget that people are the answers. They're the problem and the answers. They're both, right? And so if you're not working with them consistently, asking questions like, um, we didn't meet our goal this week. So what was our biggest obstacle in meeting our goal, and how can we fix that going forward? A lot of people just go, we got to double down and work harder. Well, that's not the answer,
Mm.
right? There's something that's stopping you from doubling down to work harder. What's the obstacle? And it's your ability as a leader to navigate that and to help people really play together. Because you know what? We don't play naturally together. We just don't, right?
Mm.
And especially by the time you're an adult. When you're a kid, you're a lot better. When you're an adult, you're like, don't people know who I am? And I'm important and they should know me and da da da. It's like working with, I've worked with couples before, and they'll say something like insane like this. Well, he ought to know what I think. I'm like, how would he know? Like, what would he? No, you have to have the conversation. If he doesn't do something that you want, you say to him, hey, honey, I don't know if you knew this about me, but here's one of the things that I really don't enjoy. I don't like to go camping. I thought you loved to go camping. You've been going camping for 10 years. I know, I was doing it for you. Right? I mean, they never had the conversation. So it's the same thing. I mean, we're not good, Mark, at really understanding people, taking the time to understand people, taking the time to what motivates them, what doesn't motivate them. And literally you can start like with an hour of doing that before you start a project. It's gonna make a difference.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Great. So, with that and kind of on that same level, but let's take it up to a higher part around, CEOs and executives, they're defining goals for the organization. So, what is some good tips on how executives should communicate these goals and inspire the alignment to them to drive the business in the direction that they're wanting to go?
Yeah. Well, I think also, I mean, they also have to connect with, maybe not with every individual, but you can have skip meetings to ask people like, hey, what do you think you can accomplish this year? Tell me what your views are. I mean, instead of just like not talking to your people, like have that feedback. Maybe it goes from your team members to their leader and their leaders to the next level up. But you have to have some sort of like cohesive idea. So I'm working with a COO right now, and a CEO makes uninformed goals. And so my client will say, hey, this is really not, we're not capable of doing this. Yes, you are. You're just limiting yourself. He goes, well, based on what we've been able to do in the past, like I like stretch goals, because he tells him I like stretch goals. I don't like goals that are so far beyond us that we're not even going to try.
Yeah.
So if you're not in tune with what your people think, then you don't know what your goal should be. So if you want buy-in, you've got to get some buy-in before you even set the goals. And you always want that stretch goal. So you want a goal that feels uncomfortable to everybody. Like it feels, ugh, and people are thinking this is going to be hard. Good. Absolutely great. We want it to feel hard. But if they think it's impossible, like if it goes to the next level and they think it's impossible, here's the difference between stretched and impossible. People quit working hard, right? And so it's that start with the communication first, like have that communication, let people tell you. B, you have to have constant, like, this is what we know that you can do. So is that faith behind it? You have to be transparent about where we are and what we're doing, any setbacks we have. You have to ask people, how should we get through the obstacles that we're facing? You have to not just make the goals as a silo and expect your people to do it. You have to ask them to be a part of whatever's going on. You have to consistently reach out, hey, from your perspective, why are we not meeting the goal? What do we
Mm.
need to change? And then not just ask it, but do something about what people are saying to you. I think so often we're going to set the goal and then you guys need to achieve it. And you don't even know, right? You don't have the input. And I'm not saying that everybody ought to be involved in every meeting. I'm just saying, are you doing a little bit of reaching out to hear the voices of your people? And when you make those decisions, are you then asking people, how's this going? What do you need to make this happen? What's the biggest obstacle in your pathway? I mean, that kind of conversation will absolutely get people motivated.
Yeah, having that keeping that dialogue open in order to find out what the challenges is, because there might be things that occur, or where what might sound like a good thing now, something in the environment changes that prevents that from being able to happen and stuff, which
Absolutely.
gets us into talking about challenges, and addressing those challenges and taking them to more of a positive light. What sort of tips do you recommend, or your thoughts on that?
Well, again, I think there's a lot of like allowing people to have conversations around it. And part of that is, uh, Mark, is you have to set like collaboration principles, if you will. So I interviewed one guy, I think for this coming book that I'm writing right now about winning business secrets. And he said, look, he goes, I just put people in a room, let them just fight it out. And he goes, sometimes it takes 3 days, but they get so tired of fighting that they eventually come to, conclusion. And I'm like, okay, like I could see where that would cause a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of people mad at one another. But what happens is we think that people know how to collaborate, and so we don't set principles in place for collaboration. And so if you want to have a discussion about what are some potential ways for this to move forward, like how are we gonna do this? You have to set down some principles of collaboration. And so that everybody understands what that looks like. So what that means is if you want to get the best from people and somebody, you have to understand the number one is that the one reason that people can't resolve a conflict, do you know what the number one reason is why people can't resolve a conflict?
I don't know. I got thoughts, but
It's the need to be right. It's the need to be right.
makes sense. Yep.
Right. So if people understand that would you rather find a solution or be right? Like that would be a principle of collaboration. So if all you're doing is trying to be right, that means you're going to repeat what you say 3 or 4 times. It means you're going to be louder than the other person. You're going to be interrupted. You're not really part of the solution.
Mhm.
So a principle would be like, are you part of the solution or part of the problem? Are you contributing to the solution? Right? I mean, you have to set some sort of ground rules for collaboration so people understand that, Mark. Because
Mhm.
otherwise, you just get a bunch of people in a room, and like the guy that I was interviewing said, "Oh, they don't fight for 3 days, and then somebody just gets tired." Well, somebody might get tired, but they don't. It may not be the right solution because somebody just got tired of fighting and just gave up,
Mhm.
right? So it's really about finding that pathway forward and how do you have the conversations that you need to have to move forward and allowing people to have a voice so that they can voice what they think is a pathway forward.
Yeah. Great. So, as leaders, we make mistakes, and hopefully that you learn from them. What are some of the common mistakes that leaders should avoid?
Thinking they're right. Having to be right all the time.
Yeah.
Having to be right all the time. Um, really, I mean, part of that is, so I had this CEO who called me, Mark, and he said, "Look, I'm going to get fired by my board of directors." They told me. He said, "I've got like 3 months to figure this out." And I said, "Well, hey," I said, "Hey, can you tell me a little bit more about that?" And he goes, "Well, hey, I'm a good storyteller and I'm really funny." And I'm like, "Well, okay, but that's not really, hasn't really nothing to do with this." So I said, "Well, give me an example." And he goes, "Well, like I took this." One of my team members, one of my biggest adversaries to breakfast. I thought we'd have breakfast, have coffee, we'd talk a little bit, everything would be okay. I'm like, "How'd that work out for you?" He goes, "Terrible. It's terrible. It's awful." And I said, "What happened?" He goes, "Well, she just started asking me questions." She goes, "What are you going to do about retention? What are you going to do about productivity? What are you going to do about our engagement scores?" I said, "What'd you do?" He goes, "Well, I almost fell out of my chair. Like, I just felt like she was attacking me." And I said, "Well, what could you have done differently?" He goes, "Well, I tried telling a funny story." And I go, "Well, let's think again." I said, "How could you engage her more? What could you do?" And he's like, he thought about it and he goes, "I don't know." I said, "What if you ask her a question?" He goes, "Huh?" I said, "Well, give me a question that you could have asked her to change the dynamics of the conversation around." And he goes, "Oh." He goes, "Well, I suppose I could have asked her something like, 'Hey, it sounds like you're really passionate about engagement. What are some of the ideas you have?'" I said, "Bingo, man. Now you're on the right track." And so he just went back and started asking really powerful questions. And he started listening. He didn't try to have the answer. He didn't try to like he wasn't even facilitating. He was just really asking really powerful questions. And so when somebody would have an answer, he'd ask another question to that. Just a powerful question. Not leading, just a powerful question. And so within 3 months, he turned around his engagement scores. They were like upturned by 30%, which is crazy in just a short time in 3 months. And his board of directors kept him and he's still working there. So when you ask the question, it's really about asking powerful questions. Like you as a leader, having the power to ask powerful questions and understand that the better question you ask, the better answer you're going to receive. Right. So if you don't like the answer you got, ask a better question.
Great, great advice, and which leads into my very well into my next question and answers, really kind of one of them. But you know, there's always inspiring leaders and people that are wanting to grow in their leadership, much like myself. What are some additional words of advice outside of just answering powerful questions, which is very very good? Do you have for inspiring new leaders?
Grow, learn, get a coach. If you don't have a coach, get a coach. If you want me, great. If you don't want me, there's many, many, many great coaches out there. Because this is the thing. A lot of times we don't know. We look at ourselves and we don't see what another person can see. We don't have the opportunity, especially if they're top. Like if you're a CEO of a company or you're up in this C-suite, you don't have a lot of people that you can admit your failures to or that you can talk about your challenges to, right? Because you're like, I really can't. You don't want to tell people who are, who are your direct reports, look, this is one of my biggest failures. You don't want to do that, right? You want to change it, and so you need to have honest conversations with somebody who can question you, who can say, well, that's one way of doing it. Have you thought about this way? You want somebody who's diving into some of your leadership qualities that need to change so that you're going to be better able to inspire and motivate the people around you. And I think that one of the biggest ways to do that, I mean, you can read books. That's a good thing to do. Read books. You can listen to podcasts like this one. You can listen to podcasts, or you
Or
can
books
get a
like this
coach.
one.
I like that one. Yeah, you can get a coach. I think having a coach where you're having like somebody who's asking you questions, you're telling them the situations you've been in, and they're able to navigate you. Like they can either say, man, that was phenomenal. You did everything. It was perfect. Like that was perfect. Or they can say, have you thought about this? Or have you tried this? And so that's just another way of, really building your muscle. I have 2 coaches. I mean, people go, oh my gosh, you're a coach. You shouldn't have to. I'm like, yeah, of course. I have a business coach and a spiritual coach because I'm still understanding that I am not yet at that space where my potential's been, X'd out. Like I've still got potential to grow.
Hmm. Great. Yeah, that's where, in St. Louis, there's a large CISO community where we bounce different ideas and conversations around, and it's great to have that to, hey, what do you think about this? And because we're all going through the same stuff, but we're different, different levels because of the different size of the organization or different, industry and all that sort of things. It helps out a lot to have someone with that sounding board
Mm-hmm.
to have those deep conversations with someone that understands what you're going through or what you could do or say better and those sort of things. So
Well, especially when you're talking to a group of people who understand your business, what you
yeah.
do. They specifically
Mhm.
understand what you do. Whereas your CEO might not understand what you do. They may not have the same, I mean, maybe they understand part of it or whatever, but they're not the expert in that field.
Right. Right. So, what advice would you give someone that's looking to change paths and to better themselves? As a coach, motivational speaker, and everything. And if you have someone that hey, I'm doing this, but I would like to do this instead, or whatever it might be, or maybe they're just really down, and you kind of
Yeah.
talked on that earlier on changing their journey. What sort of advice do you have there?
Well, the only thing I would say again is invest in growing yourself. So whatever that looks like. I mean, whether that's listening to books on tape, reading books, having some self-reflection time, doing meditation, journaling, getting a coach, any of those things, right? Any of those things. Like, what I talked to you earlier about is fill your cup. Fill your cup every day. Find something, not everybody can spend 45 minutes like I do, 45 minutes to an hour in the morning. Some people it's 20 minutes, some people it's 25, some people it's 30, some people only 15. You got kids, you got young kids, you got a spouse, maybe you got 15 minutes. But really investing in that part of you, like investing in growing you, investing in and whatever it is to keep that learning open and also to input that positivity in your world. That's so important, is to input positivity because we are hit with negativity all the time, right?
Mhm.
So 80% of our thoughts are negative. 98% of our thoughts are repeat thoughts. So imagine that, like 98% of we're not very original. We keep repeating the same negative things over and over again. Well, that's not going to get you anywhere, right? You've got to change up. You've got to somehow get into that positive realm because if you're positive, if you're passionate about what you're doing and you're positive, you're going to take more action, right? And
Mhm.
so all of that's about, and when you feel good about who you are and you feel good about what you know, like specifically in your arena, in your area of expertise, you're gonna do more. You're not gonna sit around and do less. So it's that
Mhm.
growth aspect of always looking for ways to grow is the single most important thing that I would say to any leader, any person, like any person, is to continue that growth path.
Yeah, I think that's great because I know in cyber it is nothing but negativity, because it's just a constant barrage of, attacks and risk and dealing with that and everything. And so to find some way to find positive things out of it or yeah, I like to fill the cup and starting your day off with the positive, at least then, you got something to kind of stand your ground on
Mhm.
and hope that as the negativity comes in and it chisels less away out of it, I guess, for that
Well,
matter. So
look, if you're negative, you're in the problem.
yeah.
So you're not in the solution phase yet.
Right.
So if you're thinking about you can't have two opposing thoughts in your brain at the same time, and you're going to because they're opposing, they're pulling you, they're not giving you the direction forward. So you really have to shift that thing, right? Einstein said if you cannot you cannot look at a problem the same way and find a solution. You have to change who you are, basically, right? You got to change the way you view a problem to find a solution. And so if you're stuck in the problem, it's because you're personally you're looking at all the problems, you're looking at all the negativity. You haven't pivoted yet to start looking and find a solution.
Mhm.
You have to be able to pivot to find a solution. And so that's why people who stay in the negativity, they're like, nothing happens for me. Well, you're stuck, man. You're just stuck in the negative. You
Yeah.
have to get the positive before you even start taking action.
Yeah, and sometimes, especially in those cases, people fall into the victim status of things, and then now you're really going down that loop,
Yeah,
and it's hard to get out of, trying to find that positive off of there. So yeah, that's really
absolutely.
challenging there. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so if you keep talking about all the bad things that are going on around you, what do you
Yeah.
see?
Yeah.
The bad
Nothing but
things,
bad. Yeah.
right? But if you start looking for, that's why the gratitude, like practicing, radical acts of thankfulness is really important. So if you
Mm.
start looking around you and you're like, well, you know what? This is really great. Like, hey, I'm alive. I get up every morning. I have food. I have enough money to buy food. I have enough money to buy, I have enough money to pay for my kids to go to school. I got enough money to have a car. I have enough money to like we think those are just things that we shouldn't be grateful for because we consider them things that everybody should have. But you're lucky. You're lucky that you have those things, right? You're lucky. I
Mhm.
mean, when I look outside my window and I see the mountains and I see a creek, I see blue skies, man, I'm the most blessed person in the world to live where I live. And I think that every single day, right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing that we have to change is when we get up and we see all the bad things. And that's why I say don't watch the news. People are
Yeah.
like, I need to know what's going on. I'm like, read a headline, like read something. Don't because the news is 90% negative, and 65% of the words that they use on all news stations. I'm talking about. I don't care what
Mhm.
one you're watching. It's a negative adjective or adverb. 65% is negative. So not only are they
Mhm.
reporting on something that's hard, they're also telling you what to think about it.
Right. Yeah, they're putting their opinions on you on top of it, and
Right.
they're just setting the mood initially, just with the headline and stuff
Right.
off of it.
It's
So.
like if you were a CEO and you start the meeting like, we got lots of problems, folks. I mean, everything's going bad and everything's going wrong. I don't know if we're going to make it. We might not make it through the next 6 months. Who's going to be excited? Who's ready to like, let's figure out the solutions. Everybody's like, man, I better look for a job. I better dust off my resume. I better, you're not going to get forward looking people by starting like that. And so if we want our leader to do that, then we must do it, right? Because the culture
Right.
is you. So when I go into companies and people go, "Oh, our culture sucks," I'm like, you're talking about you because you are the culture.
Mm.
So what can you do to change the culture? Well, I'm just one person. Yeah, but everybody in here is one person. If every person recognizes that they are the culture will change.
Yep. So one of the things on each of the podcasts that we do is we kind of ask some general questions here, and I'll twist them a little bit since you're not in cyber or technology, and so I'll change it just slightly here, but same preface is, what is something that companies could do better?
The funny thing is, Mark, is everybody always says communication. Like I get a lot of this about communication. And
Mm.
here's the thing. Like when they talk about communication, they talk about things like we need to have more town halls. We need to have more, one-on-one meetings. We need to have more skip meetings. We need to have more stay meetings where we ask people why you'd stay or why you'd go. All that's true. Like all that's true. And beyond that, the people who are communicating need to be better communicators. So how many times has somebody said, my door's open? Like my door's always open. But when you get through the door, that's the only thing that was open. The person wasn't open to have the conversation. So it's not just about doing the things you're supposed to do, like the meetings, but it's really about who you are specifically in a meeting. How do you invite people to have, those conversations? Do they feel like they can have the conversations without having some sort of like revenge or vengeance taken out? Do they know that they're valuable when they speak? Do you say things like, that's a great man, Mark, that was a great solution. That was a great solution to this. I really appreciate it. Can you find one more thing that we can do with that? Right? So look, that's a whole different thing than saying, that sucks. That's not going to work. I don't know why you brought that forward. And you think like this is silly, but how many people do I see still like in their communication, they don't know how to engage people, invite people to have answers, listen to people at a high level. There's just so many people who don't know how to do that stuff. It's crazy.
Mhm. So on the other side, what are something that you're tired of hearing about, other than the news? We're all tired of the news, but what is something that's
Politics
tired?
and companies. Politics and companies. Like people go to me, there's so much politics in my company. And to me,
Mm,
there should be no politics.
right.
There should be only, your performance, like not whose butt you're kissing, who you're warming up to. It should, I mean, of course, you should be kind to people and you should work at good relationships. And politics should not be a part of who's in what position, right? It should be merit based, how
Mhm.
good you're doing, based on evaluations, based on the outcomes. But the politics in companies, that's what stops motivation a lot. Because people are like, it doesn't matter what I do. Well, then
Yeah,
where's the motivation at?
yeah. I was a consultant years ago, and I got caught in a political war, basically between operations and IT, and um, because of the success I was having there, operations were trying to pull me that way, and at the same time, and finally, it was so stressful that I just went. My bosses were like, "We're pulling you out." It's like you know, you're a developer running a project. You should not, this should not be happening to you.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, this is just crazy. And so now if there's or after that, if there's ever like a company that's very political, and it's like, okay, I'm not, yep, I'm nope, gone.
Not playing with you.
Yeah,
Right. Well,
it's just
I mean,
toxic. So
yeah, it's a very toxic situation, and I hear about it all the time. And really, that to me, that is a sign that your C suite is not highly emotionally intelligent. That's what
mm,
that's a sign of, right? Because if you're emotionally intelligent, you don't need people coming up to you, oh my gosh, you're awesome, and I think you're man. I mean, you don't need
mm,
that. You just need people doing their jobs and doing their jobs well, right? So that means that there's a lack of training in that self-awareness piece and the emotional intelligence piece. Because one of the things I tell people all the time is nobody can validate you as much as you need to validate yourself. And I work with people all the time who are in C-suite positions who are like, I have the imposter syndrome, right? And I'm like, you and everybody else in the world. So let's not like, I mean, really, I mean that, like, because imposter means there's a place that you doubt maybe that you have the answer, or doubt that you're good enough to do the position. Well,
mm,
who doesn't do that when you're just taking on a new task or a new project? That's one of our first things that happen, right? But it's really like once they understand that they have the strength and they have what it takes, and look, they have the ability to ask questions. All you got to do is ask questions to other people. Like you really don't have to know it all. But once they
right.
get through all of that, then they're really good at what they do. But you have to have the ability to understand who you are. Like I have this problem that I need to fix it. And if you're not in that self awareness phase, then you're always part of the problem.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. So there's the industry is constantly changing and that sort of stuff. But is there a particular trend that you see maybe in leadership that we may want to consider or to embrace, or keep our eyes out for as this maybe matures?
Wow. I would, yeah, I don't know. I would say that there is more of a trend now to listen to people better, to understand that when people are coming to work for you, especially our younger people don't want to go through like years and years and years of working before they get a chance to level up. So they want to be heard right away. And I think before, especially with my parents, and probably with my generation too, there was this like, you don't get to say anything because you're the peon, you're at the bottom level, so just keep your mouth shut and
Mm,
do your job, and in 10 years you may have a voice. And I think people are recognizing that if we don't do that right now, that if we don't listen to people, and that doesn't mean that you have to take everything they say as like gold, but just give them a voice, value what they say, appreciate who they are. I mean, these are the things people say to me all the time. How do we keep people from just jumping ship now? How do we keep them over? I'm like, well, you have to show your loyalty to them,
mm,
right? If you want them to be loyal back, you have to do all those little things that says to the person, not necessarily that you're great, but hey, let's do some coaching here to help you get better. And at the same time, here's the great things you're doing. So I think there's a bigger trend of really paying attention to people early versus, wait 10 years before you even have a voice here. Just
Mhm.
grind it out because we know that people aren't going to stay anymore. They're just going to jump ship. And there's no value anymore on longevity. It used to
Yeah.
be like, if you don't stay somewhere for, X number of years and you're not going to get another job, and people don't care anymore. They don't care. If you were there for 3 months, they'll take you.
Mhm. Yep. Well, Sherry, thank you very much for being here today. An incredible conversation. So, definitely enjoyed all the great tips and everything. So, real quick, what's next for you? I know you kind of mentioned a new book that might be coming out soon. Any other big events or a little bit about your book?
So, Mark, so, I interviewed you for my other book that you showed up. So, guys, fellas, Mark was part of the book that helped. It was a really great book. And so I'm writing another book on winning business secrets. And so that hopefully, I don't know, cross your fingers. I'm close to having it done. So I'm close. I'm April, hopefully by the end of April, it will be out. And then
Nice.
as I'm doing that, I am now interviewing for the book after that. So that book's already, I've had 250 people I've interviewed. Now I'm working on resilience, which I think is a great topic of about people. How do you be a resilient organization, and how do you be a resilient leader? And
Mhm.
so I'm really excited about those two things. And of course, I continue to speak. I just got back last week from North Carolina, speaking to a bank. I have other gigs coming up as speaking. I do webinars almost every week, and I do coaching people every week. I have tons of coaching clients that I work with. So that's just ongoing. That's what I do.
Well, great. Well, I wish you the best. Thank you so much again for being here. And I know our listeners are going to enjoy it. For those that are listening, don't forget to click follow or subscribe to keep this podcast going. So, Sherry, thank you very much for being here today.
Hey, Mark, thank you. And if anybody wants to find me, you can find me at the www.thewinningleadershipcompany.com. Please, 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 please take a shout out to me, and let's see if we can give you a discovery call on, anything that you want to talk about in terms of leadership. Happy to help anybody out. One time free, and you're going like, what's the catch? Here's the catch, folks. Here's the catch. You have to promise to rant and rave about me to other associations, organizations, or people.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Sherry.
Thank you.